Let's talk about the passionate student. You hear this all the time in the homeschooling community about how we're supposed to have passionate kids and kids with passions. And I ask this question in the conventions all the time in my workshops. How many of us have passionate kids? And a small handful of the room will raise their hands. I think at one of our workshops a couple weeks ago, we had like 300, 250, 300 people in the room, and probably 6 people raised their hands. And I said, how about the rest of you? Do you feel guilty for not having a kid with a big passion? And a lot of head shaking. People are going, oh yeah, what have I done wrong that my kid doesn't have this big passion in middle school or high school? I want to talk about it because I think it's really not as common as the homeschool community has led us to believe that our kids are going to have big old passions at a young age. And this is why. Most of our middle schoolers and high schoolers, they don't even want to get out of bed in the morning, right? They're like working at avoiding the chores they have to do. They're trying to figure out how to play their favorite video game or get outside or get online with friends or whatever. And so having a real passion is not as common as we're led to believe. So let's talk about that. One of the purposes of both middle school and high school, in my opinion, after years of home educating and working in education, working with hundreds, maybe thousands of other homeschoolers and people in the alternative education space, is really to give your kids a broad smorgasbord of experiences and opportunities so that they can taste test if they like this or what they think about that, and to give them a common knowledge so that they can be part of the great conversation. Now, the great conversation has changed a little bit in my opinion, but that's a topic for a different day. But anyway, we want to give them some common vocabulary and knowledge and understanding of the world so that they can go out into the workplace, workforce, and be able to communicate well with their peers and with their managers and bosses and all that kind of thing. So that's one of the goals of middle school and high school. With that, most of our kids are taking a typical course of study. Even if we're homeschooling, we have this idea in mind of what we should include for our kids to have a great understanding as they go forth, right? They should know the fundamentals of biology. They should be able to understand some basics of algebra, how to some personal finance, how to write an essay, some literature, and some history, right? Foreign language, some electives, etc. So most of us are concerned with the typical course of study. But I do think that, again, one of the great gifts that we have as homeschoolers and alternative educators is that in middle school and high school, we can provide our kids with such a wide array of different opportunities and different classes and different teachers and the whole smash. So we can really personalize our education for our kids. We have, about 14,000 hours from the time they're in kindergarten to high school to teach them and train them. 14,000 hours, that's a lot of time. Malcolm Gladwell made really popular this idea that if you spend 10,000 hours on a certain subject or doing something specific, that you will become an expert in it. So if you think about that in terms of the 14,000 hours we have to educate our kids as homeschoolers, our kids could become an expert in half in something. It's kind of exciting to think about. But again, back to this idea of all of our kids passionate. No, I don't think so. I think most of our kids are just normal teenagers who want to sleep a little bit more and grab an extra snack and read an extra chapter of the book or watch another episode of their favorite TV show, play another game on the computer console, whatever. We do have those the handful of kids who are just naturally really passionate about something. Those are the outliers. Let's be honest, on a bell curve, we've got a small group over here. So what creates passion in us? I think it's actually a path towards passion, and I think it goes like this. We develop an interest in something. This is why I think it's so important in junior high and high school that as parents, we give our kids a broad variety of things to read and learn and understand and go on the field trips and take the camping trip and do the vacations and all those kind of things so that our kids can have their interest piqued. And I do think those interests in us that we're drawn to, that's a God-given gift, right? Because I'm interested in some things that you're not, and vice versa. Some of my kids have been super interested in things I could care less about. Same with my husband. We all have certain things that really draw us. And that, I think, has to do with nurture and nature and what God has put inside of us, right? But let's start with that. We're interested in something. And because we're interested in something, we want more experience with that area of interest. So if we're interested in jazz music, we go to the jazz bars. And I mean, like jazz bar. I hate to say bar on a, you know, on on this Facebook Live, but let's be honest, jazz bars are where people go to listen to jazz. We're going to listen to jazz records. We might play jazz music. We might be in the jazz band. We're going to get really, we're going to understand jazz more and more because we have this interest. So we're going to gather experiences based on our areas of interest, right? And because we've gathered experience, we start gaining skills. Because what the brain practices, the brain gets better at. That's why I'm always like, if you're practicing writing and you're not getting feedback about whether your writing is good or not, you're going to practice bad writing. Okay, so your brain gets better at what it practices. We've gathered experiences, and because we've gathered and we're so interested and we keep gathering experiences, we get better at it, right? Out of that experience, we develop some skills. We start understanding what good jazz is and what bad jazz sounds like. We understand who the greats were. We understand where the best places to go buy the record is. We understand where the best places to go hear the live jazz is, where the great jazz concerts are during the summer and all those kind of things. We gather skills and we start talking about other people who have that same level of interest as we do. And because we've gathered skills, all of a sudden we're getting better and better and better at it. We gain some mastery, and out of that mastery, we develop passions. I think that's generally how it goes. If you disagree with me, I really want to hear from you. Tell me how you think it goes. Because I've thought about this a lot, because I used to feel so guilty. Like I had some kids who just didn't really have strong areas of passion as kids. And that was totally okay. We did a lot of work in homeschooling. We did a lot of field trips and did a lot of experiences and activities and all those kind of things. So I feel like we had a really robust academic and homeschool life. I don't feel guilty about that at all. I think we really went after it and had a lot of fun and some really unique experiences. But again, with that, not all of my kids had really like these well-developed passions. Now I did have a couple kids who really did have well-developed passions, and honestly, some of them were a little different than I would have picked because, again, back to that, what is interesting to me is going to be interesting, is going to be different than what's interesting to you. But I do think in the homeschool community, we hear this awfully much, is that our kids need to have passions. And I just want to say, hey, if your kid doesn't have this really robust, well-developed sense of passion that they really want to go after this certain subject or area of interest, it is totally okay. They don't have to. There's no rule book or law that says if your kid doesn't have a passion in high school or by 15, they're a loser. What it really says is your kid's probably a pretty normal 15-year-old, right? Or maybe 14 or 17. It's totally okay. Now, if you're really worried about what your kids are going to do after high school because they don't have a big area of interest or passion, that might be a different topic, conversation that you're looking in. It might not be what is my kid's passion, but what are they interested in enough in to do as a job? We've been talking a lot about jobs on these lives and on the podcast and things like that. Over the course of your kid's lifetime, they're going to probably have about 14 to 15 jobs. I think it's between 13 and 15. So if you hear me quote different numbers, it's within that range. Like I would say 12 to 14, 13 to 15, mainly because our kids are going to live longer generally, probably because healthcare is better in some ways. And also their jobs are just changing really swiftly. I mentioned this stat a couple days ago that 85% of the jobs that are going to be around in 2030, just 6 short years away, haven't been like developed yet. They're not on the market yet to work at. So there's like really the speed of tech is crazy. We're living longer, so your kids are going to have more than 1 or 2 jobs, and those jobs might be in completely different vocational sectors. So they might be in tech in one time, they might be in mental health in another, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really fine. How do we really get our kids ready for those jobs? Well, I do think, again, providing a wide smorgasbord of experiences, teachers, opportunities, field trips, travel, whatever your budget can afford, whatever your lifestyle can afford. Again, use what you have in your hand. You're not trying to replicate my school in your home. You're trying to homeschool your kid. That means your home. What do you have in your hand? What do you have to provide your kids? And listen, I say this all the time. You are absolutely the best resource for your student, for your kid. You, the parent, you are the best resource for your kid. I'm the best resource for my kid, whether my kids think so or not, whether your kids think so or not. It's no mistake that we're the parents of our children and they're our children. I really believe that that's like a divine just plan and purpose. And so we should just embrace that and own it. So what do we have in our hands? Let's not disparage over what we don't have, what we wish. I mean, I do think ideals are super important, but we can get so caught up in idealism that we lose sight of what we have right here and right now. So what do you have in your hand? That means money, time, energy, natural resources. Do you have a trampoline? Do you have a pool in your house? All these kind of things create different opportunities. Do you live by a big city? We used to live in Pasadena. The Olympic training swimming pool was right there in our city. Completely different opportunities than we find ourselves in South Dakota. Let me just believe me is what I'm saying. Okay, so what do you have in your hand? How can you create educational opportunities for your kids? And then go for it. You can provide a really rich, beautiful homeschool life with what you have. A few books, teach your kids how to write really well. Again, let's go back to those 4 C's of education, soft skills that everybody's going to really need more than ever before in this fourth industrial revolution: communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. And focus on those things. Focus on reading and writing and arithmetic, and you're going to do so well as a home educator, and your kids are really going to thrive into that kind of environment. So you don't need a lot of resources. You don't need really super expensive resources. I would suggest, really honestly, as your kids get older, outsourcing several classes to other teachers, because here's the thing: most of us as homeschoolers and moms, we are super easy on our kids. Like, if they can't make it the deadline, we're kind of like, well, I get it, we were busy that week and it's okay. But if they were in school, or if they are taking an academic program, listen, we all have deadlines, and sometimes you just have to meet them. There's a drop dead day at the end, and it's good for our kids to understand that that's part of what adulthood is about, that they have to take responsibility, they have to be time aware, all those kind of things. So outsource a class. The other thing too, having a different teacher than a parent is going to really help them, I believe, in the long run, because they're going to get to experience different expectations, different teaching styles, have different projects, papers, and presentations possibly than what you assign to them. And I think honestly too, there's that feedback loop, which feedback loop is so important for really good academic training. If you don't have a feedback loop, you're just putting your stuff out into the world. You don't know if you've gotten it right or wrong. You don't know how to self-correct, or it just makes it much more difficult to learn really well. So outsourcing, I think, is a really good way to invest your money as a home educator. And of course, I say that owning True North Homeschool Academy. But listen, part of the reason we started True North Homeschool Academy is because there were classes I wanted to outsource, and we didn't have we just didn't have people around to outsource to. Partly because we lived in a state with fewer people, and not a really super, not a state that had a lot of it wasn't just like super academic necessarily. It's not that people aren't smart here; they're absolutely super smart. It just was a different kind of environment than what we were looking for as home educators. So we started True North Homeschool Academy to pool together world-class educators at a place that you could just purchase anything you wanted for your homeschooling: math, English, science, history, foreign language, and electives. And here we are today with over 130 classes, I think, for you to choose from for 2nd through 12th grade. So what a great resource. I literally wish that we had had it years ago when we were homeschooling. And of course, a couple of my kids really did benefit from True North. And I'm so grateful for the teachers that they had. Both of my younger kids will still say that certain teachers that they had at True North Homeschool Academy truly changed their lives. They changed their worldview. They changed how they understood certain subject areas, or how to read or how to write, and those kind of things. And of course, one of my kiddos was fluent in a second language when she graduated from homeschool. So pretty exciting stuff. There's so much more opportunity now to homeschool than there ever has been before. There's never been a better time to homeschool. So it's a great time to homeschool. It's a great time to provide your kids that wide smorgasbord of opportunities and resources. And of course, you can do online classes that are not live classes. You can do asynchronous classes. I think there's a time and a place for them too, but I would really caution you as parents, don't make all of your kids' education asynchronous and just watching a screen or watching cartoons. Our brains were not meant to just watch pixels. It's a very passive way to learn. Having really good dialogue, that back and forth discussion, having an educator who's really invested in your student can be super helpful, if it's not you, of course. So anyway, back to, do your kids have passions, and should they? I think a small group of kids are always going to have passions because, again, there's a bell curve with every group of people, right? And so you're going to have those people who are going to just be really passionate about a certain subject area or a certain skill set or whatever. But I think for most of our kids, it's something that is going to be more of a slow burn. The other thing, too, about getting our kids ready for, how do we prepare them to launch really, really well? We just need to prepare them with the understanding that we don't always get to do what we want to do and get paid really well for it. I grew up in an era where you heard this all the time: do what you love and the money will follow. And honestly, I ask this at workshops too. A handful of people are old enough to remember that saying, and I'm like, did it work out for you? And they're like, not really. Same with us. Do what you love and the money will follow. Do what you love and you get to do what you love. Follow the money and the money will follow. That's really how it goes. So teach your kids to be financially savvy, help them understand how to budget, how to go grocery shopping, the cost of things. Most of our kids wake up and there's food in the fridge and gas in the car, and they don't understand that if we own a pet, we're at a certain economic threshold, right? If we have a big Suburban that's brand new in our garage, we live at a certain economic threshold. And there are a lot of people in our communities that don't have those things, that wish they had the money and the economic resources to live that lifestyle. So help your kids understand the lifestyle that you've provided for them and what it costs. Be upfront with your kids about what things cost. Help them understand how to shop, how to budget, how to say no to yourself, because that's an important thing all throughout life, self-discipline. I do think if we expose our kids to these broad resources and books and opportunities, that they are going to develop skills and experiences and get to the point of mastery in some things, and possibly even have some passions that are guiding threads throughout their life. And what a beautiful thing that is, because a lot of times when we're really passionate about something and we really put a lot of time and energy into it, and then we age with that passion, we have all that time that we bring with it and all those experiences that we're adding to what we already know. And that's just a great place to share from and teach others from. So if your kid doesn't have a passion in high school, don't stress. It's going to be okay. Just keep doing the solid academics that you're doing. And if you're not sure what solid academics are, shoot us a DM or leave a comment below, and let's have a good chat about that, because there are really solid things that you can do academically, and there's time wasters academically. There's really good curriculum out there, and honestly, there's some not so good curriculum out there. So don't waste your time on bad curriculum. Be focused and get the good stuff, because your kids need it. You're setting them up for success in life, regardless of how much money they make or what they do vocationally. Success means having the freedom to learn in so many ways, right? So hope this has been helpful. Would love to hear from you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good day.